because African countries are underrepresented at the UN Security Council, and this would be
la situation sécuritaire dans la région. Et nous avons tous convergé sur la nécessité de soutenir les initiatives de paix qui visent à ramener la paix et la sécurité dans la région, dans notre région, et surtout à l'est de la RDC.
aimed at enhancing security in the region, especially in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And we agreed that we need to maintain the dialogue and we need to strengthen the dialogue between our two countries and to make sure that the conflict is resolved via peaceful means, because it's affecting the entire continent. Well, basically, that's what we discussed today, and His Excellency also confirmed once again the invitation extended by President Putin to President Evariste Ndayishimiye to attend the third Russia-Africa summit that is going to take place in October in Moscow. And the current chair of the African Union, our president, accepted this invitation. He's going to attend the summit, and he's going to attend both as the chair of the African Union and as the president of Burundi, which is a friendly country for Russia, and he's going to represent both the African Union and Burundi. So basically, that's what I wanted to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the leadership of Burundi for the attention given to our delegation, for the hospitality extended to us, and for the substantive talks that we've held. As my colleague and my friend just said, we held a very productive meeting with the President of Burundi, Evariste Ndayishimiye, and we reviewed our partnership together. This partnership has rich history, good traditions, and serves as a good foundation to strengthen ties in all the areas. Today we reviewed our agenda, considering the goals that were discussed during the previous summit between presidents of Russia and Burundi back in 2023 at the second Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg. And after we have reviewed the situation, we agreed on practical steps that will be made to make progress in all the areas, and we agreed to prioritize the expansion and deepening of the trade, economic and investment ties. We discussed a spectrum of projects that the Russian companies are willing to implement in Burundi, first of all in the field of hydroenergy and nuclear energy. As for the nuclear energy, we have already started this work. We are training the personnel, and now our friends are interested in the smaller nuclear power plants, and Rosatom signed a document with its counterparts that is going to serve as a foundation for this cooperation. And we have positively estimated the cooperation in the humanitarian field, especially in healthcare, in countering dangerous infections. We have a joint center established here, and I'm sure it is going to make its contribution in ensuring epidemiological safety, not only of Burundi, but of all the other countries in the region. We also discussed cooperation between our Emergencies Ministry to respond to the various natural disasters. So such center is being established in Burundi, which is going to strengthen our cooperation, and there is a growing interest towards educational exchanges, and we are ready to increase the number of scholarships allocated for Burundi. And during the talks between ministers, we continued the conversation that we started last December in Cairo on the sidelines of the second ministerial forum under the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum. And we agreed to continue with our consultations, with our negotiations when Minister Bizimana travels to Moscow. I hope he finds a convenient date, because we need to maintain this cooperation, this context. And we have coinciding positions on the majority of principled matters. We are standing for the multipolar, democratic world, so that all the countries adhere to the principles of the UN Charter, not selectively, but in its entirety, in interconnectedness, including, first of all, the sovereign equality of the state and non-interference into their domestic affairs. And we've also emphasized the need to consider the interests of Africa. During the reform of the UN Security Council, Africa has a consolidated stance that is reflected in a number of documents, and we respect this stance and we support this stance. We believe it is essential to eradicate this historical injustice towards the African countries, African nations, to ensure more effective representation of the African countries at the UN Security Council, along with the representation of other Global South countries, including Asia and Latin America. This is our firm position. We deeply believe that the Western countries should not be considered for the additional seats at the UN Security Council, because the West is overrepresented in this body. We're grateful to our Burundian friends for the support of the Russian priorities and initiatives at the UN, and we always support Burundi's position at the UN Security Council, at the General Assembly, and other bodies, and we agreed to maintain same cooperation at the UN, considering that Burundi is currently chairing over the African Union. We discussed the prospects of our cooperation with this Pan-African organization. We welcomed the regular consultations between Russia and the head of the African Union Commission. We are going to continue with this practice. And when we spoke about Africa, we also prioritized the conversation about various crises at the continent. First of all, considering that it's happening next to Burundi, we discussed the situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and in the Great Lakes region in general. We share the opinion that the principle of the African solutions to African problems must be implemented, which was reaffirmed by the president of Burundi. We share this stance, and we believe that any attempts of any external actors to impose any recipes, any solutions, are going to make the situation more complicated. This is not going to help resolve these situations. And such examples of blatant interference into African affairs, we can see such attempts in the situation when in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the lawful leadership of this republic, with the support of Burundi, now it is trying to overcome the aggression that is being waged by the so-called M23 group, which is supported by the foreign representatives, among which there are also Ukrainians. We are aware of this, our friends are aware of this, and there are Ukrainians are taking part in too many conflicts in Africa. They are trying to take sides with the forces that stand against the lawful governments, with the only goal to ensure themselves, to impose themselves as a vital factor in the African continent, and to cause trouble for the countries that are friendly with Russia. And of course, we have also discussed the Ukrainian dossier, and I familiarized my counterpart with the latest developments, and I reaffirmed the line that President Putin mentioned on many occasions. He spoke about this back in July 2024, speaking at the Foreign Ministry, and we continue to adhere to this line, and we are grateful to Burundi for understanding the root causes of this situation and for the stance that Burundi has taken at the United Nations Organization, voting against provocational resolutions that are being promoted by the Western handlers of Ukraine and the Kyiv regime itself. As it's been said, we have also discussed the preparation for the third Russia-Africa summit, especially since Burundi is currently chairing over the African Union, and the documents that we are drafting for this forum, they are aimed at deepening and expanding our ties with our African friends in the field of economy, in the field of investment, high technology, digitalization, artificial intelligence, agriculture, nuclear power, and a number of other areas. And when thinking of the agenda, we thought about the doctrinal documents of the African Union, including the 2063 strategy, to make sure that the summit is fruitful and useful to implement the goals that the Africans have set for themselves. And next year, we are going to mark yet another milestone event in our diplomatic history. We are going to celebrate 55th anniversary. We will try to prepare a good program to celebrate this anniversary at a proper level. Thank you.
Monsieur le ministre des Affaires étrangères, de l'intégration régionale et de la coopération au développement.
Your Excellency, Foreign Minister.
Le ministre des Affaires étrangères de la Fédération.
Your Excellency, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation.
C'est aussi un moment crucial, là où nous allons inviter les journalistes de la partie burundaise.
We have invited Burundian journalists, and they have 4 questions to ask the Foreign Minister of Russia, and then we will ask Russian journalists to ask their questions to His Excellency, Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Burundi.
Merci de m'accorder la parole. Je m'appelle Nadia Daïzeye.
Thank you.
Je suis journaliste à la RTNB, la radio-télévision nationale du Burundi.
I'm a journalist of the National Television and Radio of Burundi, and my first question is, what specific projects does Russia plan to finance in Burundi in the coming years to help implement the Vision 2040-2060? Because by then, Burundi is supposed to become a developed state. The second question about the cooperation between Burundi and Russia. What measures does Russia take to strengthen its cooperation in the field of education and training of the personnel in Burundi? Well, as I've said during my opening remarks, first of all, we've discussed projects in the field of hydro energy, because our expertise as hydro companies' expertise are among the best in the world, and nuclear power as well. The low-capacity nuclear power plants, many countries are interested in this, including our Burundian friends. They have signed a memorandum with the state corporation Rosatom already, and we have already started training of Burundians at the relevant universities in Russia. We are preparing the personnel for the nuclear power industry in Burundi. As for education, we heard a lot of kind words about the services that Russia is providing, including the various civilian disciplines and military disciplines, because it's also very much in demand in Burundi. Burundian nationals are attending various universities and colleges, including the ones that work under the aegis of the Ministry of Emergencies. We will continue with this practice, and if our friends are interested in this, the number of scholarships that we are providing, we are ready to allocate more scholarships.
Merci de
Don't be
m'accorder la
afraid.
parole. Je réponds au nom de Claude Cazé, journaliste à la radio nationale. J'ai deux questions.
I'm a journalist from the National Radio Broadcasting Company. I would like to welcome you once again. I forgot to
Je disais bienvenue au Burundi,
put the
Monsieur le
headgear
ministre,
on.
et j'ai des questions. La première de
I would
savoir
like
quelles sont
to
les
greet you
mesures
once
que vous
again,
envisagez,
Your Excellency.
pour renforcer les échanges commerciaux entre le Burundi et la Russie.
What measures
Qu'en
are
est-il,
envisaged to
précisément
strengthen
de
trade
la
exchange
suppression
between
des
Russia and
taxes
Burundi?
sur les produits burundais qui sont vendus en Russie, par exemple.
And
La deuxième est de
what
savoir le message
Burundian
que vous
commodities
adressez,
are
à la
currently
jeunesse
supplied
burundaise,
to Russia?
désireuse de renforcer les
And
liens
what
entre la
message
Russie
would
dans les
you would
domaines
like to
académiques
pass
et
on to the
scientifiques et
Burundian
culturels?
youth that would like to
Merci.
strengthen its ties with Russia in the field of education and science and technology? I forgot the first question. What was the first question?
Ну, я уже говорил, что у нас большие планы,
Well, I've
возможности
already
и
mentioned
готовность
that we
расширять
have
сотрудничество в области
vast plans
образования.
and
Молодым людям
great
посоветую
prospects to expand
обращаться
our
в те
cooperation in the field
правительственные
of
структуры
education, and I would
Бурунди,
like
которые
to
распределяют
suggest that the
стипендии,
local young
поступающие
men
из Российской
approach
Федерации.
the
Мы
organizations
будем
that
всегда рады
allocate
их
the
видеть.
scholarships that
Но
are
и
coming from the
помимо
Russian Federation. We look forward to
образовательных
seeing them in
процессов,
Russia.
помимо
As
обучения,
for
есть
the
еще такая
other
вещь, как
types of
контакты между
education,
молодежью.
there is such
У
a
нас
thing
в
as contacts
сентябре
among the young
в
people,
городе
between the youth.
Екатеринбург
In
состоится
September in
очередной
Yekaterinburg, we are
всемирный
going to
фестиваль
hold
молодежи,
the World Youth
который
Festival,
приглашаются все
and
желающие.
we invite everyone who
Будем
wants
рады
to
видеть
attend.
делегацию
We would be
бурундийских
happy to see the
девушек и
Burundian
юношей.
delegation of Burundian young men and young women there.
Pardon.
Bien, merci. Merci Russie 24 pour votre question.
Thank you very much for this question.
Abordé cette question et nous avons constaté que
We've
les
discussed
conditions
this,
actuelles, la
and
situation mondiale actuelle, notamment avec
we
ce
noted
qui se
that
passe
the
dans le Golfe Persique,
global
surtout avec
situation in regards
la
of what's
fermeture
happening
du
at the
détroit de
Persian
Hormuz
Gulf
a un impact certain
and the
sur
Strait of
le
Hormuz,
continent africain, mais
it
aussi sur le
affects
Burundi. Et
the African
nous avons,
continent as well,
discuté de
including
la possibilité de
Burundi.
pouvoir,
And
trouver
we
d'autres moyens
discussed
de
the possibility of finding
obstacle.
other ways
Nous avons abordé le
to
problème
bypass
de financement.
this issue. We
Nous
discussed
avons,
the issue of
pensé,
funding,
nous sommes mis d'accord sur la possibilité
and
de
we
chercher,
agreed
d'explorer des voies de
that
financement
we
et de
need
paiement alternatifs.
to look for
Et,
other ways to
nous-
fund
nous entendons,
our
continuer
projects,
à,
and we intend
explorer les voies possibles pour justement contourner
to look for new ways
cet obstacle.
to improve
nous
the
avons,
situation in this regard.
Justement parler de la possibilité de pouvoir peut-être
We also discussed the
approvisionner le Burundi,
possibility
s'approvisionner en produits pétroliers, et nous avons invité
of supplying
la
oil
partie
products
russe
to
de revoir un
Burundi,
peu comment on
and
pourrait investir dans les usines de
both Russia
fabrication
and
d'engrais
us, we
chimiques
discussed
au Burundi,
how
justement pour
we can invest
contourner
in
ce problème
chemical
de transport,
plants in
parce
Burundi
que justement à cause de la situation dans le monde,
to
le
avoid
conflit en Ukraine,
problems with
il y a,
transport, considering
certains
the
pays,
current developments
occidentaux qui ont
in
pris
the
des
world,
sanctions contre la Fédération
because
de
there are
Russie,
certain
et
Western
qui
countries
impactent,
that
qui
are
bloquent en
imposing
fait
sanctions on
le
Russia,
passage
and thus
des
they
produits
are
qui étaient destinés au
blocking
Burundi, notamment les engrais chimiques.
the
Dans ce cas aussi,
supplies
ça
of
va
various
aussi être la même
commodities
chose
to
pour,
Burundi, and this
l'appui
situation
en produits pétroliers. Donc nous sommes en train de discuter de la possibilité de pouvoir
In these conditions, in these circumstances, we are looking for other ways to avoid this problem. Thank you.
Первый канал, Геннадий Крутилев. Здравствуйте, уважаемый господин министр. Вопрос такой.
Esteemed Minister, my question is,
России и Бурунди мы знаем, что у нас
we
создан совместный центр по борьбе с
know that
инфекциями.
within the framework of Russian-Burundian cooperation, a joint research center for infectious diseases was established in Russia, helped equip your country with a mobile lab. To what extent do you consider this cooperation key to ensuring biological security for the country and for the entire region? Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. In healthcare, we also promote and expand our cooperation. Russia is providing support, has been providing support after various infectious diseases outbreaks, unknown diseases outbreaks as well. And as you rightly said, there is a research center for infectious diseases, and we received a mobile lab where Russian and Burundian specialists are looking for solutions to avoid the spread of various diseases. And this way we are trying to resolve the issues in this regard. And thanks to this cooperation, as part of this cooperation project, we've received also various technologies for this joint center that are employed at this joint center to strengthen the potential of our specialists, of our researchers. And after Ebola outbreak, the Russian Federation also promised to share its experience with us to help us combat this disease. And thanks to this cooperation between Russia and Burundi, we now can be more active, more proactive in combating this disease, to make sure that Burundi can defend itself, protect itself from other outbreaks as well. And it has to do with the outbreaks in the neighboring countries as well, and as my counterpart said, so there is effort to combat Ebola. And Burundi would like to tap into the expertise of Russia that it has in combating infectious diseases. And this cooperation, it is growing stronger. And our medical professionals are also getting trained in Russia. And in this context, we have solid cooperation. We have solid cooperation in the field of healthcare that is beneficial not only for Burundi, but for the entire Africa. And as for the Ebola outbreak, there is a new strain of the virus that is spreading to the neighboring countries, to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And our specialists did travel here, and they worked here on the ground, and they found the necessary kits, the necessary systems to help diagnose this particular strain. As our healthcare minister briefed the World Health Organization, among other bodies, it is ready to manufacture it en masse. We are ready to manufacture a vaccine against this new strain. We just need some biological materials, and we've requested our Burundian friends to provide such materials. As soon as we get them, we will start to manufacture this vaccine en masse for this particular strain that is spreading across the region. Thank you. Is that it? Okay, thank you.